be handicapped. The same way when you die, you need certain qualities. One of them is a generosity. Generosity could be the wealth on the other side. Don't have it, you're in trouble. So he says, let the rich people to know. They gotta know where the poor people are. He clearly says here, you, anybody who you are responsible to know where the poor are and where the rich are. Somehow let them know, he says, where the poor people are. This is a responsibility, even if you don't have money. You have to let them know, he says. And then he says, what happens to them, apparently he can't do anything about it. Is that we have to do it. Because I told you before, God has manifested himself in Baha'ullah. Is like a person who's been seen through a webcam. And in the webcam, if you talk to him, let's say it's your father from a long distance, if you ask him to give you some money, he cannot give you money through the computer. Same as this. Baha'u'llah here cannot give you money like that. But he gives you the spiritual money. For example, in this case, he says that I'm exchanging, money for generosity. If you do it, he says, you become generous. So, I wanted two more. Now I'll continue discussions. O son of man, deny not my servant. Should he ask anything from thee, for his face is my face, be then abashed before me. This is a huge statement. Oh my God, it's scary. Baha'u'llah says somebody's asking you to give him something because he's in need. Not necessarily just the poor. It could be a rich man that he needs something. He says, he is me. How are we able to deny them people from what we can give to them when they ask us? But strictly speaking, these things are not harmful material that's already forbidden by Baha'u'llah. You can't give somebody a bottle of alcohol or crack and cocaine, No. There has to be these needs, has to be legitimate needs. The needs that are necessary is a part of living, not a part of dying. You're not giving poison to the guy if he asks you to give me that. But otherwise, when they're asking you, he says, I'm asking you. I have to mention again, by the same token, begging in the Baha'i faith is forbidden. When you see people are begging outside. Ironically, Abdul-Baha himself used to give to the poor all the time. It was funny because they would say, God bless your father. And the father of Abdul-Baha was Baha'ullah, God himself. But people in Akka would used to say that. It's written on the Mahmud diary, I think. Or maybe that it's on the Mr. Yunus Khan diary. That Abdul-Baha one day was in Akka and he says the poor, they approached me and they were so poor and I had no money. He himself was a prisoner. Basically, banished in that city. He could not leave the place. He said, I didn't see nothing. I saw a shop, a store, a grocery. I told them, just go, take to eat. He said they were so hungry that they were eating the raw rice. They were so hungry. And imagine what would have happened to that owner of that shop. I don't know if Abdul-Baha could reimburse him, but he could not help himself. And he saw poor people, so many poor people. Okay, and the last one, he says, O son of man, bestow my wealth upon my poor, that in heaven thou mayest draw from the stores of unfolding splendors and treasures of imperishable glory. But by my life to offer up thy soul is a more glorious things couldst thou but see with my own eyes. With mine eyes. Wow. Giving things that you possess is one thing, but giving your own self completely, this is the biggest one. That has to be given to God too. That's a part of sacrifice that he's asking. But in this case, we've seen right now, he calls excess of money a barrier, Baha'ullah. And he says, yet there are people that they can give, and those who give, they're like sun in the sky. He says, they're so, God is happy with them. And then he says, even if you don't have money, but you know the poor are there, he says, let the rich know that there are poor people. It's our responsibility. Without which, we're not going to be able to become generous. This is a part of being generous, giving. But how are you giving? You have to be very careful. So anytime you decide to give, imagine you are hired on behalf of God to take God's money and give it to others. When you give, then you give to God. Now God gives it back. He says, okay, Mr. Bill Gates, go and spend it. See, he makes lots of investigations to see where he has to give it. By God, probably he does the best in that regard. I can't advise him. But you can't just go give money. You think, okay, because it pleases you. Maybe the guy gets the money right now and he goes buy a car and right in the highway he has an accident, he dies. To find out exactly where your money goes is your responsibility, or else it's going to be a bad investment. You'll give the money empowering a person that wants to take this money, not spending for his children or for himself. He might want to buy alcohol, he might want to buy something else, He might want to buy a weapon against somebody. So it's very important, because the outcome of your giving, you have to study that. You have to investigate where this guy is going to, what is he going to do with it. It's so important. There are many thousands of these stories, in the Baha'i faith especially. There are so many of them. But I'll give you an Islamic one, because you haven't seen that. There was, you do not have access to it in the West a lot. This is the story of one of the famous imams. There are 12 of them. There are 12 disciples in Christianity. There are 12 imams in Islam after Muhammad. This is a story narrated, I believe, from the 6th imam, called Imam Sadiq. The truthful, that was his title. Sadiq means truthful. It was the time of Hajj. As Muslims, they would go to Hajj, to Mecca those days, 1,000 years ago. And one guy, his name was Ali ibn Yakhtin, and he was to be going to Hajj that year. And one day, for some reason, in the street or something, he saw a lady is going through the garbage and taking dead meat, like dead chickens or dead animals that was thrown out in the garbage to feed her children. And he chased her and found out. In those days, the houses, they had a hole in the top because that was the chimney right in the middle of the hut, basically. Poor ones. It's written that he went in the night and he threw the money from that hole in the ceiling down into the house. So that lady has some money. And then he could not go to Hajj. And a friend of his says that, oh, go. So you decided to leave this year to go? He says, no, I can't come this year. Oh, it's just too bad. Why can't you? He says, I can't. Then the same man goes with the imam to Hajj, to Mecca. And he says, my Lord, look, there's thousands and thousands of the Muslims coming. And Imam said to him that there is no Muslims here. They say he opened his fingers like that and he told him to look through. And he looked through, it were all animals. They were not even human. Except one. And that Ali ibn Yakhtin was there. And he said, Imam, I just saw everybody's animal except that, Ali ibn Yakhtin, but he couldn't come this year. He said, Yes, he couldn't come, but he really was here because Imam knew what he did. So, see how things can turn into generosity. But again, since you're with a Christian background, remember, Christ says your right hand cannot know the left hand. How are you going to make it? But people do not know, no one in the world knows that you did it. Do not seek self-satisfaction, receiving thank you, gratitude. If you do, then do it for that. Expect no spiritual gain from it. You can't be given two gains. Either people or God. If you want God to thank you, no one should know it. Okay? So this part is called zakat. It's in Islam too, in the Baha'i faith too. It's like us, the people, we have to give. There are two other ways that the donation would have to go in the Baha'i faith, which is definitely a proper channel. It's definitely what's preferred by God, what's preferred by Baha'ullah. And they are going to the Universal House of Justice, so all kind of any other donations, you know, if somebody dies, his house is left behind, wealth of any sort that's public would have to go to the Universal House of Justice, everything. Except for one thing, it's called Rights of God. That is specifically, is written by Abdul Baha in his Will and Testament and by Shoaib Effendi. That would have to go to the guardian of the cause of God. Abdul Baha says that. But if there's no guardian, that wasn't for 57 years, then the money would have to go to Universal House of Justice. Because that is so written in the Kitab Aqdas that if I am there, he says, you give it to the manifestation of God or to his successors. If there's nobody there, it will have to go to Universal House of Justice. But in 2002, the International Institution of Guardianship by the Elder of God is formed. Therefore, today I'll tell you, if you want to get any benefit of your money, the rights of God would have to go to the elders of God. And this is called the rights of God. Now, what's rights of God is